This time we'll call the February meeting of the Haywood County Board of Education to order. This time I'd like to ask Mr. Jimmy Rogers to lead us in our board prayer, immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So I get my phone stopped.
Make sure we got our phones off.
Everyone please rise.
Let us pray. Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the many opportunities you've given us. Lord, we want to thank you for Haywood County school system being the best of the best. Lord, we thank you so much for all the teachers and staff and the parents and the community, Lord, that are so involved in the education of the children of Haywood County. Lord, we thank you for these children. We thank you for these families. We thank you for Haywood County. We thank you for all of our staff. Lord, as this board meets here, we pray your guidance and direction upon us as we make the best decisions to help have the best education system possible for our students. And Lord, we thank you again for our opportunities to be here so that we can help make those decisions. Thank you for all the input. And Lord, be with each one of those who are suffering due to sickness or illnesses. Lord, we pray that you be with each and family and everybody involved in this county. Be with our country, Lord. Be with our world. And let us all have peace. Guide and direct us, Lord, in everything that we do. We'll give you the praise and the glory for it all. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay, under announcements, our next regular board meeting will be held Monday, March 14th, here at the Education Center at 7 o'clock. Are there any other announcements that need to be made? Okay, under agenda adjustments, I do know the Finance Committee had some items.
We got 3 items.
Okay, is there any objection to the 3 additions from the Finance Committee? Okay, do you have anything from Building and Grounds?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a couple items to bring forward from Building and Ground.
I'll let's do that right prior to the finance. Would that be okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Between 18 and 19, we'll do the Building and Grounds. And how many items was that?
Just a couple.
2 items. And is there any objection to adding those 2 items? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion. We approve the agenda as adjusted. As amended.
Okay,
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Rogers, second by Mr. Kirkpatrick. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have approval of the February 15th regular board, should be approval of that's later, sorry. We just approved it, sorry. All right. Next, we have Miss Carol Fox, excuse me.
Good evening, Chairman Francis and members of the board. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you Senior Master Sergeant Stephen Robertson with the Tuscola High School JROTC, and he is going to do some student recognitions.
Thank you, Carol. Good evening, Haywood County Board of Education and parents and those in attendance. On behalf of Ms. Heather Blackman, our school principal, and our aerospace science instructor, Major Dave Klontz, I'm excited to come here this evening and share with you the recent success of our award-winning drill team. Our drill team returned to official competition Saturday, January the 15th. Our last competition was October 2019, and as you know, a lot has happened. But it was pretty interesting that day as we were continuing to overcome things. If you recall, that was the day the snow came into Haywood County. And so with the help of Stephen Sharp and Dr. Nolde, we were able to coordinate to go to Gray, Tennessee to attend Daniel Boone High School's 25th Invitational Drill Meet. And in a field of schools such a large capacity, there was 22 schools there, South Iredell, Science Hill, RS Central, and 19 others. We're happy to say Tuscola placed 4th overall, and we received top ratings again as the best Air Force Junior ROTC unit of the 5 that was participating there. As you know, these are multi-service, Marine Corps, Navy, and so on. So we're really happy to secure that. Again, that's, I think, our 8th year running at Daniel Boone. Specifically, our cadets placed 3rd in both the armed and unarmed squad events. And 2 of our brothers here, Jonathan Walworth, the senior, and his younger brother, 10th grader Noah, pulled off some amazing individual effort. Jonathan, in a field of 230 contestants, placed 1st in the individual unarmed, and his brother placed 2nd in the armed individual drill among 200 contestants. So I'll introduce the cadets now. There was a few due to work that weren't here, but I still will introduce them nonetheless. So Cadet Senior Airman Ashley Bland. Cadet Senior Airman Brooke Cope. Cadet Airman Amy Crawford. And commanding the armed element, Cadet Second Lieutenant Ben Inman. Commanding the unarmed element, Cadet Staff Sergeant Matthew Mann. Cadet Technical Sergeant Carly Melton. Cadet Airman First Class Dalton Messer. Cadet Airman Basic Lillian Moore. Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Mark Mulholland. Cadet Technical Sergeant Jaron Payne. Cadet Senior Airman Trista Talley. Cadet Senior Airman Noah Walworth. Cadet Captain Jonathan Walworth. And our Corps Commander, Cadet Major Matthew White. Those not in attendance was Ryan, here tonight, Ryan Clausen, Amarissa Holloway, Calvin Holloway, Ronan Holt, Evelyn Lopez, Gabriela Marquez, Christopher Santiago, and Leslie Smith.
Have you joined them up for a picture?
We got the majors.
Promise I'll make a blank and get a picture. Okay. Can we have all of you up here on stage? We'd like to get a picture real quick. Everybody can't be in the back. You definitely want to be out there. That's a good looking sweatshirt.
Great job. Congratulations, Air Force JROTC at Tuscola. Congratulations. Oh, thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Hines.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Putnam, and guests from the community. Tonight, usually this time of year, we get to recognize some teachers for Haywood County Schools who have gone above and beyond the normal training for teachers in order to sharpen their skills and become even more effective than they are to start with. And they have either gained national board certification or renewed their certification. And as you've heard me say before, Haywood County Schools is one of 81 districts in the nation, 81 school districts in the nation, recognized by the national board for the number of teachers that we have that have completed this training. It is the highest level of staff development available to a teacher at this time. It is supported by the state of North Carolina with a pay increase for doing that and recognizing the higher level of skill. We have close to 40% of our teachers certified now as national board certified. We want to recognize Joy Soley, Sandy Strawn, and Lynn Carter. Where's Joy at? Here she is. Is Sandy here? Okay. Joy is a national board certified counselor that works for Haywood County Schools at Junaluska Elementary. And she coordinates this program for us, helps the teachers get signed up, helps them get reimbursed. Haywood County Schools does provide money to the teachers to help pay for the costs of this, which can be significant, using our federal Title II grants that are for this purpose. So we appreciate Joy doing that, and she does a great job with it. So let's recognize our teachers. We have 4 teachers. 3 are here tonight, and I will call out all the names. Some couldn't be here, but we have 4 that are brand new candidates this year. Tiffany Cantrell. Christina Roberts. Haley Donaldson. And Amanda Parton couldn't be here tonight, but she is also a newly certified candidate. And we have a little gift for them. It's a placard for their desk that has their name and says National Board Certified Teacher. So y'all won't keep you in suspense as to what's in the bag anyway. All right, the renewals. These teachers are, they're on a 10-year cycle, and these are renewing their certification for another, they do it in 5-year increments now. Daniel Atwood couldn't be here tonight, but he is a science teacher at Tuscola, and he is renewed. Catherine Boyer. Congratulations. Dia Branson. Daphne Buchanan could not be here tonight. She has done EC and elementary for us. Heather Downs. Elaine Hyatt. Aaron Horton. Ronald Hunley. Ron. Oh, your mama calls you Ronald, right? Michelle Mahoney couldn't be here tonight, but she is a high school teacher for us. She is renewed. Tiffany Marchbanks. Congratulations. Angela McHenry. Lindsay Moore couldn't be here tonight. She has renewed as well. Stephanie Morgan. Stephanie Reinhardt. Nanette Reniger. We have two other teachers that couldn't be here tonight. Amber Turner and Christy Sarles also renewed theirs. I also want to thank Miss Margaret Rogers for helping coordinate all this tonight. She does a great job. And congratulations to our teachers. We're very proud of you. Thank you. Do you want to do the picture up here, or can we do it up here, Kim? Okay. We can get all y'all to line up here.
Everybody cannot be in the back.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our teachers who have gone above and beyond for National Board certification. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Next on our agenda is Ms. Barker. While Ms. Barker's coming up, I wanted to give y'all an update. Dr. Nolte had some surgery done recently, and he's recovering well. He has some swelling in the knee area where he had the surgery, but he has reported to us that he's doing really well. So we wish him well and keep him in your thoughts and prayers as he recovers from some surgery. Please do. Ms. Barker.
Yes, sir. Chairman Francis and members of the board, at this time, I would like to give you an update on the accreditation process for our schools. In the past, many of you recall that Cognia, formerly Advanced Ed, formerly SACS, have accredited schools in our system. This process occurs every 5 years, and our current accreditation with Cognia will expire in July of this year. Dr. Nolte had asked me when he first hired me to research a new process that for accreditation that the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction is offering school systems now. And actually, in July of 2012, the North Carolina General Assembly empowered the State Board of Education to accredit high schools in the state. North Carolina General Statute 115C directs the school board to the state school board to adopt rigorous academic standards for accreditation after considering regional and national accreditation standards, curriculum standards, and other information. The State Board of Ed policy describes the high school accreditation framework as a process whereby public schools undergo a quality assurance process that includes a review of school performance indicators An extensive needs assessment is conducted also. And this was done by Tuscola, Pisgah, and Haywood Early College and submitted to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction for review and ultimately for the state school board approval. This process included a thorough 3-year review of all school performance data and other data sources. At the February, and alternative schools are not included in this accreditation process, so Central Haywood was not included. At the February 3rd, 2022 State School Board meeting, accreditation was voted on and approved for Tuscola, Pisgah, and Haywood Early College. This cycle would be effective until February of 2027. Elementary and middle schools do not have to be accredited, so it's just for our 3 high schools. The one piece about this, the state board, I think, recognized for school districts across the state, this accreditation through our state board and our North Carolina DPI is much less cost prohibitive than the prior accreditation process. Accreditation through the State Board of Education will cost approximately $5,000 for every 5 years, roughly $1,000 a year, compared to $19,000 a year with Cognia, which over the course of 5 years will be upward $95,000. So it's also much less cost prohibitive for our schools. So I just wanted to give you that information and see if you have any questions about that I could be glad to answer for you.
I'd just like to make a comment. I think it's a wise use of our taxpayer dollars to seek the most economical and great accreditation that we just received, and congratulations on that as well. I know it takes a lot of work. We've been through those interviews and processes before, so this is a great turn for Haywood County Schools. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you to our schools and all their leaders and teachers and everyone, community support. So any other questions?
Just appreciate your hard work on getting that process done for us.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Just bear with me for just a second. I want to do a presentation. I'd like to recognize one of our board members, Mr. Jimmy Rogers. Would you please come forward?
Woo, way to go, Jimmy.
Congratulations. On behalf of the North Carolina School Boards Association, Academy for School Board Boardsmanship, I'd like to present this bronze award to Jimmy Rogers. This means that Jimmy spent a good amount of time learning more and more about being a good board member and boardsmanship through the North Carolina School Boards Association training programs and continuing education credits. Many of you may not know, but required by law is the fact that that our board members are required by state law to have 12 hours of continuing education each year to meet the standards. And Jimmy's gone above and beyond that. And so he's got the bronze award, and congratulations, Jimmy.
I'm glad you sat next to me. You make me a better man.
Congratulations, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chairman. But it's real good work, and it's fun to really be involved in this association because there's a lot of good things going on across our whole state. And like I've said many times, I still think we've got the best education school system in this state. So we're going to keep working towards that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Now is the time period designated by the Board of Education for public comments. This time is set aside for comments from the general public in regard to matters of concern to the public. However, comments addressing specific students and/or personnel are prohibited due to confidentiality laws and regulations. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board requests that all speakers adhere to the time limitation and prohibition against mentioning individual students and personnel. It has been our policy to limit it to 30 minutes, but we've had more than that number of people to sign up So if the board, without objection, will extend it to let everyone have a chance to say their 3 minutes. Is that correct? Is there any objection? Okay, so we'll extend it so all 25 people that signed up will have an opportunity to speak to the board tonight. However, I'm going to be strict on the 3 minutes. I want you to keep it within the time frame, please, so we can move on. So everyone has an opportunity to express their views. First, we have signed up, and this is the order that I got the sign-up sheets. Number 1 is Mr. Steve Yates.
Members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. Since 2020, we've seen schools go through dramatic changes. For the 1 or 2 members of the board who've stood in opposition to the nonsense of traffic signals and 5+5 and mask mandates and excessive quarantines, I appreciate you for fighting for our kids. Tonight's comments, however, are directed to those who have bowed down and towed the line for them. The same health professionals, I might add, that don't even follow proper mask hygiene themselves, all the while insisting our children must be masked at all times and quarantined even if not sick. The uncertainty of COVID-19 initially caused many to be cautious, apprehensive, and even scared. The more, however, we learn about the virus and its different mutations, the more we learn that it's not a virus that significantly affects children under 21. As a matter of fact, if we use the worst numbers, it has a 98% recovery rate for all age groups and well over 99.9% recovery rate for children under 21. How about the effectiveness of the vaccine? Well, let's look at the numbers for our very own county health department. On January 18th, they reported that 70.3% of the 883 new cases reported were unvaccinated. Well, I was educated in Haywood County, but using my math skills, that means over 260 fully vaccinated people caught the virus. That doesn't sound like a very effective vaccine to me. We elected you as members of this school board to be our voice and our representatives, to speak for us, not to rule over us. You've ignored parents, and you've caved to the bully pulpit of the public health department. You're not representing us. We will remember this come election time. Who's in charge of the school system? I've only got 3 minutes. Who's in charge of the school system and its policies? When I ask school board members about excessive quarantines and mask regulations, those that actually respond, which is very few of you, I might add, those respond generally lowering their head and say, you know, our hands are tied. We must follow the recommendations of the health department. I want to hear from you right now. If you fail to follow those recommendations, what happens? Are you arrested? Are there lawsuits? What are the repercussions of not following their recommendations? So I followed the bouncing ball and talked to the county commissioners. Asked them the same question. I've spoken to several off the record. They agree wholeheartedly, and they say it's ridiculous. But they also say it's not our problem to fix. The school board is the duly elected officials, and they pass the policy. So what is it? Do you as our school board have the authority to do what you think is right and follow common sense regarding sick policy? Policy, I might add, that's been in effect for over 50 years, and it's got us through the flu, mono, and other very contagious diseases. Are we at the mercy of unelected, power-hungry health department bureaucrats who answer to no one? Stand up for our kids, make the right decision, and grow a backbone. Vote no to mask mandates and no to quarantine for the healthy. This ends when we end it. Thank you.
Next, I do want to move along, so it's Janet Presson.
Good evening. I'm Janet Presson. I've been an RN for almost 30 years, and I'm here to talk about the mask mandates. Masks are unnecessary, ineffective, and are causing great harm to our children. A few quick facts. First, according to the CDC, children under the age of 18 have a 99.999% recovery rate from COVID. Second, almost all of the 400 or so children who have died in the U.S. with COVID over the past couple of years have had serious comorbidities. Children just are not at risk for dying of COVID. Third, the cloth or paper surgical masks are not, nor have they ever been effective against this or any other virus. No amount of hoping or wishing or mandating is going to change that fact. I don't care what and say the masks do not protect against COVID. They just don't. I spent this morning reviewing scientific studies regarding the harm mask wearing causes children, and it is significant. There are so many studies detailing physical, psychological, and developmental harm. There's a group called PERC, Protection of the Educational Rights of Kids, who have put together some fantastic summaries if you want to read the research yourself. I started to outline all of the specific psychological and physiological issues caused by masking, but I realized I literally wouldn't have time to cover them all, and I didn't want to just stand up here reading a list. I do want to make a couple of points. First, masks were never meant to be worn for long periods of time, and every time you touch a mask, you risk bacterial, viral, and fungal contamination. Kids are nonstop touching their masks, adjusting them, removing them when possible, setting them down, shoving them in pockets, backpacks, and purses, and then putting them back on. And sometimes they don't get washed for days at a time. Those masks get warm and moist and just grow bacteria like crazy. If you watch the video of the last school board meeting, you'll see our health department representatives both remove their masks to speak and set them on this podium. Then they've just contaminated the podium with whatever was on or in their masks, and then they just contaminated their mask with whatever was on this podium. See how easy that is? Even the health professionals are getting this wrong. Final point, we have done a terrible disservice to the children of Haywood County by allowing these mandates to be put in place and then continued. A quick analogy, when a couple decides to divorce, the children are definitely affected, but it's our responsibility as adults to minimize the harmful impact on those kids. However, we all know parents who have used their kids as weapons against their spouse or done everything they could to keep their kids in the middle of the drama, dragging it out as long as possible. That is basically the equivalent of what's being done here with the mask mandates. Kids are being harmed, and we all know it, but the health department apparently just doesn't want to let it go. Let's divorce the health department and do what's best for the kids. We as parents and you as our school board must take back our rights and responsibilities and just say we're done with masks and mask mandates. Thank you.
Patricia Bricker.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening. My name is Dr. Patricia Bricker. I speak with you today as a mom to a 10th grader who attends Tuscola High School and is a lifelong educator. I want to start my comments with a note of appreciation for the important work that the board, school leaders, and teachers do, day in and day out, for our children and the community. Thank you. I trust by now that the board members have read the letter I sent about the censorship of the book, Dear Martin. I'm here today to highlight 3 related points that I would like you to consider. First, book censorship is serious business and process matters. I support a parent's right to express concerns. I also understand that made the decision to pull the book and believe it is in his rights as superintendent to do so. However, when decisions like this are made, we must consider who has a seat at the table. As I already shared, I'm a parent as well, and my voice was not represented in this decision. I have since learned that many other stakeholder voices were also silenced. Often, due to the invisibility of privilege, some groups benefit and some are harmed in situations like this. How do we ensure that diverse voices, especially voices of marginalized populations, are honored when we are faced with tough decisions? How do we respect and support teachers in their professional decision-making? School policy states that a committee may be established to review these cases. I ask that moving forward, a committee be convened to consider any kind of book censorship, and that this committee is diverse and inclusive of teachers, media specialists, school leaders, parents, and members of the Racial Justice Advisory Council. Second, I want to emphasize that context matters. While the stated concerns were about profanity and sexual innuendo, the Dear Martin book is about much more than that. The content addresses essential topics, ones clearly included in North Carolina standards. If the hard decision is made to pull a book that addresses important topics, then explicit and detailed attention should be given to how those topics are covered in alternative ways. Third, I recognize that some people don't believe that this decision to censure is about the struggles against racism that are at the heart of this book. However, there is a history of concern about how racial issues are addressed in Haywood County schools, making this a critical time for the school system to update the community on its equity initiatives, including the advisory committee established in July 2020. I know that there are teachers who are committed to inclusive curriculum, as outlined in state standards, and also to making schools safe, affirming, and equitable spaces for all. I ask for explicit encouragement of and support for teachers in this work, and for more attention to the county's equity initiatives, as well as more communication with the public about them. I offer to be part of the solution. I'm willing to facilitate book study, consult on equity initiatives, help organize professional development, or serve on the Racial Justice Advisory Council. On another topic, I urge you to follow the CDC and DHHS guidance related to masking. Thank you.
Next, we have Carol Eggleston.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Eggleston. I'm currently the Vice President of the Haywood County NAACP. We, the Executive Committee of the Haywood County NAACP, are concerned by the recent actions taken in pulling the novel Dear Martin from the curriculum at Tuscola High School. Our objections are the following. Leadership insists that eliminating Dear Martin had nothing to do with race, but was solely about the profanity in the novel. While the language is also troubling to us, we believe its use is an honest reflection of real life as our society confronts racism and race. Any fly-on-the-wall observation of young people will confirm that this language, while profane, is in high schoolers' everyday experience. Used in a classroom with a skillful teacher, it is unlikely that students will come away feeling they have learned some new words or are encouraged to use them. For example, teachers prepare students by warning them that some language may be offensive, but that the teacher trusts them to handle mature content when it's appropriate. Most of all, our experience in Haywood County has convinced us that race and racism are the real issues here. Over time, we've collected stories from parents and students that lead us to understand that school experiences of students of color have often been one of victimization. This has led us to advocate for professional development around culturally responsive teaching in our schools. We are grateful that we have been invited to offer these sessions over the past 3 years. Dear Martin's protagonist, named Justice, is a gifted young black man struggling with Dr. King's message of responding with love against fear, violence, hate, and wrongful death. Throughout the book, Justice comes to understand some deep truths. White students, guided by a professional in the classroom, may get it too. Students of color who read Dear Martin may also see the dawning of that understanding in their peers. All of our students must prepare to live in a society as it is, confronting and solving as many social problems and racism as one outsized issue that persists. It was reported that objections to the book were brought by a single parent, incidentally the same parent who wanted the school to take down the pride flag. And worryingly, the board members or the parents say they have not read Dear Martin, the book in question. He is cited as saying he read online excerpts and objected to the profanity, which is also notable that the school board chair is quoted in the online news source, The Daily Beast, acknowledged that he had not read Dear Martin. According to the same source, he is not going to read it because he doesn't read books. It does not appear that the prescribed process was followed. Haywood County School Policy Code 3210, Parental Inspection and Objection to Instructional Materials. This policy affirms parental rights to examine and object to materials. However, the next option is for the building principal to establish a committee to review the objection. Was this committee called, and did the review occur? Most importantly, we believe, is the assertion in the policy that the board believes professional educators are in the best position to determine whether particular instructional materials are appropriate. Our concern is what alternative materials are going to be provided to empower students to navigate through the internet headlines, the social media uproar, the news coverage of continued social injustices. We feel that all students need to become critical thinkers and be allowed a pathway so that their voices are heard. Specifically, students of color need to be validated in a world that often excludes them. Silencing this author or any other author is equivalent to silencing the voices of every student who seeks growth and real-world validation. Contributing to willful blindness creates a generation that's undereducated, neglected, and naive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Russell Binkley.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity to share my feelings about the recent withdrawal of the book, Dear Martin, from Tuscola High School. I'm Russell Binkley, and I taught for 9 years in elementary and middle grades, and 15 more years in the School of Teaching and Learning at Western Carolina University. And I've served as the chair of the Haywood County NAACP Education Committee. In the last 2 years, I've led the combined Jackson and Haywood County Schools Education Task Force. I'm sorry, the NAACP, not the schools. We've offered professional development in Haywood, Swain, Macon, and Jackson counties with about 30 teachers participating each year. I want to be careful to say that I cannot read the minds or the hearts of anyone involved in pulling Dear Martin from our schools, because it's a weighty responsibility that you have as school board members, as parents, or as administrators. However, even though I cannot fully know the motivation about the decision to remove Dear Martin, I do know that there's a history of racial misunderstanding in our county, in our schools, and the optics are not good. We're told that the issue is the language in the book and not the theme of violence and discrimination that often partners with racism. And so I became alert and defensive. I understand the parent and his complaints. The language disturbs me also, even though it reflects real life. But the language doesn't trouble me as much as the book's story, with a young black man who looks to the example of Martin Luther King on how to respond to violence with peace and with love. I think back on an episode from my own teaching. My 6th grade class in a conservative rural community in Illinois called Tuscola learned about the civil rights movement, specifically Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. I wanted to show my class a movie as a result of that called The Long Walk Home, which I recommend, that I thought told the story well. But before I pressed play on the VCR, it was those days, I made the usual introduction. 6th graders, you're going to watch a movie that is kind of rough. You'll see people threatening and being mean to each other. You'll hear some language, a few swear words that I don't like. A character uses the N-word. You know we don't say those words in this class, but as your teacher, I have a lot of faith in you, that you're mature enough to handle this language, and you know that I trust you, that you won't take this as an example of how we should talk. And it worked. There was not even a snicker or a giggle as they watched this movie. These were 11 and 12-year-old kids. We all want to keep students safe, but they're in the real world. Nearly every one of them carries that real world in their back pockets, a cell phone. How many parents control what their kids are interacting with on these devices? What these students don't carry with their phones in their pocket is a caring, thoughtful, compassionate professional to guide them as they interact. What they do have in the classroom is a caring, compassionate, wise professional. So my time is up, but I urge you to use your wisdom to trust the professionals that you've hired to guide your kids. Consider how we educate all our students and have faith in students' ability to handle real life. Thanks.
Next, we have Suzanne Henson.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Suzanne Henson, and I have a 5th grader at Riverbend Elementary. I'm here tonight requesting that we stop mandating all COVID policies, including masks, distancing, and quarantine periods for healthy children. Unvaccinated children should be treated no differently than vaccinated children, as we know that COVID can still spread through fully vaccinated individuals. I'm here to ask of you to stand up against the overreaching policies that have been imposed on our children, teachers, and staff. COVID is not going away. We are going to have to adapt to living with it, just as we have for the flu and common colds. I'm tired of our children being told to wear a mask all day. However, they can attend an after-school, indoor athletic event without a mask in sight. Where's the science behind that? Why do the board and health department employees get to dictate our children, but pick and choose when they want to mask up? If you will notice, over 70,000 people packed into an indoor arena to watch the Super Bowl in California, of all places, without COVID tests, without COVID screening, and without masks. States and surrounding counties are doing away with COVID policies at unheard of rates. If you haven't noticed, the gig is up. What is infuriating is that all it took was an approaching midterm election to make some changes. What should have made those changes happen, or the will of the parents that are here in this county. Thank you.
Next, Madeline Henson. I assume that's you, Miss Madeline. You can move the microphone down. There you go.
Hi, my name is Madeline Henson, and I'm a 5th grader at Riverbend Elementary. I am very lucky to attend a wonderful school with very loving teachers and staff. They are doing their very best to help us have the most normal experience as possible at school with all of the COVID policies. Wearing a mask is not normal. It's hard to breathe, it's hard to concentrate, and we do not want to wear them any longer. It's not fair that we have to wear them all day at school, but nowhere else that we go. Please allow us to go back to normal days at school where we can just be kids again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Melissa Shipman.
I actually have little Hadley here that wants to say something first.
Hello, my name is Hadley Parks. I'm a 3rd grader at Bethel Elementary School. And you were smothering me.
Sorry, she was nervous.
She did a great job.
In Haywood County, we have a population of 63,171 people. Of those people, 12,395 have had COVID. Of those, 174 have died. None of those are children. Recently, it's came to my attention that we are allowing a person who has signed her rights over to her children to tell me what to do with mine. That's not okay. There was 1,240 people at the Super Bowl. No masks on. When kids go to Bethel youth football games or Bethel basketball games, Pisgah High School games, no one has a mask on. We are allowing complete strangers to tell us what we can and cannot do with our children, and we as parents are tired of it. There is a science teacher at Canton Middle School that if you do not have your mask up, he will shine a laser in your eyes. If that was my kid, the laser would be the last thing he had to worry about. And any science teacher should know that if you shine a laser in your child's eyes, you're going to blind them. It's common sense.
No, that was Hartley that spoke to us earlier, is that right? Hadley, I'm sorry. Make sure I got it right. Don't want to miss anybody. Okay. Hadley. Is that right? Hadley Whitmer, is that right?
No, that's Hartley.
Okay, Hartley. She's already done it.
No, she's not.
All right.
She's dead.
Hartley.
Yeah.
Whitmer, please. Whitmer. Now that I butchered your name and set you up for a good talk here, so go ahead.
Hello, my name is Hartley Whitmer. I'm 12 years old and I attend school at Waynesville Middle. I feel that masks should be optional because lack of oxygen. Lack of oxygen creates a breeding ground for bacteria and breaks down our natural immune system. You think you're helping us, but in reality, science proves that you're actually hurting us. My second reason is you can't understand each other. For example, there's a lot of miscommunication at school between teachers and students, especially for new readers, which can lead to bad test scores. My third reason is facial expressions. Facial expressions are influential for humans because they convey vital information that allows children to navigate our educational and social environment. Without those, it leaves people feeling empty, which can progress to depression and later on to suicide rates. My final reason is that we are all allowed to attend basketball games, volleyball, wrestling, and other school sports where masks are not required, but yet we still have to go to PE wearing them and to all of our classes. To sum it up, we live in America, a free country. We should be able to make our own choice. Since it's my body, it should be my choice. Thank you.
Next, we have Holly Riley. Holly Riley.
Hi, my name is Holly Riley. Excuse me. That's the leftovers of COVID that I had earlier this year. I have two children that go to Riverbend and a husband that teaches there in 3rd grade. Our children should have never been masked in the first place. I understand that back in 2020 we didn't know a lot about COVID. I understand that it was a fearful time. I was fearful too at first, then I gave it to God and prayed. Since then, we've learned more about COVID and the useless face coverings that our children have been forced to wear for way too long. Cloth masks don't work. Even the compromised CDC agrees with that. There are plenty of studies out there about how the very young, those kids that have had to wear masks in pre-K through first since this started, may be facing difficulties later in life with regards to reading and social skills. That's not what this country needs. There are vaccines now. Just because less than 56% of Haywood County residents are fully vaccinated doesn't mean our children should be the cover for anyone's fear about getting COVID or fear of getting the vaccines. I got the vaccines in July, August of last year. I got COVID early last month. Getting COVID seems inevitable. So get your shots if you want, or don't get them if you don't. Live in fear if you want, but I hope you don't. But get rid of this ridiculous mandate that requires our children to cover their faces. Haywood County Schools claims to do what's best for our children, our students. Let's make that statement true and really do what's best for them. Masks should be optional.
Thank you. Mary Beth Cochran.
Hello and thanks. My name is Mary Beth Cochran. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, and there is always going to be two sides to the story. Why are we being forced for our kids to wear masks? We are still free individuals, and no one should be telling me or my grandkids what we need to do and whether we should be masked or not. As stated in my custody papers from the court on May 12, 2016, I have total care, control, and custody and to make medical decisions for them. And this was filed, I have the file number also. Therefore, starting tomorrow, I am going to be doing a peaceful protest. Anyone, anywhere can join in. I will be sending my grandkids to Bethel Elementary, Bethel Middle, and Pisgah without masks, whether you say so or not, and I want to see what happens. Because it is a mandate, not a law, which means we are in charge of our children, their decisions, and their well-being. So everybody join in that wants to, and I want pictures, everything posted to social media starting tomorrow. Peaceful protest, no masks for our kids. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Cody Henson.
Hey everyone, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Cody Henson, and I have 2 kids in the Bethel Elementary School. I'm coming to you today to ask to remove the mask from our children. In 1776, America became a democracy, which means no one person can rule over the majority. Majority always rules. Today I ask you to look at the people that's here and ask you to look, because this is the majority. And we have sit back and done nothing for long enough. I've had enough. We're fed up. To say we're fed up is an understatement. We've elected you guys, all the uns, up here, to do what's right for our children. We've had numerous votes in the past, and y'all have voted to keep masks on, maybe not directly, but have made it to where the mask always go back on the kids. Haywood Health and Human Services allowed y'all to believe that if the numbers went down, then we would be out of the mask, which has never happened. And if the mask did come off, Haywood Health and Human Services made it to where the repercussions were worse than wearing the mask. Kids would be out of school for days just because they didn't have a mask on. The board needs to quit worrying about getting sued if a kid gets COVID. My recommendation to y'all is to stand up and be a man and vote how the people that elected you in here has got you to vote. It is absolutely ridiculous 2 years into this thing that our kids are eating lunch, sitting in the hallway, taking their mask off, putting it in the floor. They walk through the bathroom all day, lay it down, and then they have to sit there and eat in the floor in that nastiness. Now, do yuns eat in the floor in the hallway? I don't think so. So the kids, they can't even sing in music class. They have to hum in music class for 2 years. Not to mention teachers are fed up with making the kids wear a mask. The morale of teachers is at an all-time low, to the point to where they're wanting to quit and pursue other careers just to get away from this. Wake up, school board. County commissioners, wake up. If you don't stand up and have a backbone for the people of this county, I will personally run against y'all. And I will run as a campaign, as a voice for the people who ain't afraid to stand up and do what the people elected them for. Quit shoveling the responsibility off to someone else and take hold and do what is right. So today I ask you again to please be a man and not a puppet to these people and their games using our kids as pawns. And to the parents that don't feel safe sending your kids to school without a mask, it's simple, wear one. But as for me and my kids, they want freedom from tyranny of a few people that want to make the rules for all of the majority.
Next, we have Layla and Lily.
Hello, our names are Layla and Lily. We are students in the 5th grade at Bethel Elementary School. We are here to talk about how masks should be optional for Haywood County schools.
As a student, masks are very frustrating for many reasons.
First, it is very difficult to understand teachers while they are teaching a lesson. Masks make it hard to hear what the teachers are saying, and it sounds muffled.
Second, masks are also frustrating because we constantly get yelled at to pull them up over our nose and mouth.
If you are worried about getting sick, then by all means wear a mask. If you're not worried, then you shouldn't have to wear one. It should be your choice either way.
Some students have to sit on the floor in the hallway during lunch and they lay their masks on the ground where there's a crazy amount of bacteria on the floor after everyone walks in and out of the bathroom and back down the hallways.
Students despise going to school because we can't breathe and we can't see our friends' faces.
Teachers and students are over it.
This month we've been learning a lot about Black History Month and how they stood up for their rights and beliefs. Rosa Parks felt that she had the right to sit wherever she wanted on the bus.
Martin Luther King believed everyone should be treated equally. Both stood up for their beliefs and changed the world forever.
We are here to do the same. So are you going to stand up and make a change?
For what is right for Haywood County Schools?
Thank you.
Next, we have Mark Caldwell.
I would rather not follow that, but it takes
Sorry, you're already second place.
it takes me 3 minutes to open the Bible on Sunday morning. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I don't have a whole lot to say other than I want to thank you guys for making our schools what they are today, with a good education and a good place for our children to go. But I also want to say, as an elected official, I've heard the commissioners say that you are for the people and you will vote with the people. And so as you look tonight and the previous nights, the people are saying no more mask on our kids. As we look at CDC website, we see 51% suicide rate is up right now in girl teens. I've sent several things to the board today to look at, and that was one of them. Why don't the health department, rather than mandating masks on our kids, figure out how to stop suicide for our young adults and save some lives in this county? I'm all about saving lives, and I believe that you are too. But I am asking you tonight, as the motion comes up, as it does every week, whoever makes a motion for that motion and a second for that motion, you agree with putting masks on the kids. And so I'm encouraging you tonight, don't make a motion, don't make a second. Let that motion fall or either vote on it to say no more mask. Somehow, we've got to get our kids to where the smiles and our kids feel comfortable going to school again. And again, I thank you for your service, but I also want to say my dad fought in the trenches of North Korea so that we could have freedom, and freedom is no mandates.
Next, we have Kay Miller.
Thank you, Chairman Francis and board members, for allowing me to exercise my God-given right as an individual to speak freely tonight. Undoing the mask mandate for children is the right thing to do. Parents should be able to parent. Tony Fauci and his associates have been caught in lies, and they've not been held accountable. There have been at least 14 gold standard, randomized, and controlled trials that found masks do not work. Even the most esteemed medical journals admit the purpose of a mask is to calm the anxiety of the masses. Dr. Simone Gold, who's been censored heavily, that's putting it lightly, said people who are apathetic towards their own liberty cannot eliminate constitutional rights for those who are not. Throughout this county, the state, and our country, tyranny has been imposed under the false banner of safety. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident," and listen to this one, "that all men are created equal." That's different than equity and equitable. that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. It's not really about mask mandates, it's about control and power, not liberty and freedom. Mask mandates are tools to rule people, just like vaccine mandates are tools to rule people, and vaccine passports are tools to rule people. We may consent to be governed, but we don't consent to be ruled. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Trudy Smith. Did I say it correctly? Thank you.
Thank you, board members and chairman, for letting the public have time to speak tonight. I am a retired teacher, and my MED was in guidance and counseling from Loyola University of the South. I taught for 30 years in upper secondary and adult education. I developed and wrote state programs for the vocational schools. I've only lived in Waynesville 4.5 years. I have met many, many kind, responsible, concerned parents and grandparents. I attend county commissioner meetings, alderman meetings in Waynesville, and now my first time at a county school board meeting. I'm sure I'll be back. I'm here on behalf of parents, grandparents, and students who are alert to real possibilities of reprisal and retaliation. They've lived here all their lives and know the community well. I'm confident that you will each take steps to correct some of the problems and inconsistencies that I personally have witnessed and heard of from the parents and grandparents whose children and grandchildren I know, and they deserve better from the people who have the responsibility of oversight of our school system in Haywood County. Why should a middle school student, and I use no names or schools, why should a middle school student be afraid? Yes, afraid to take a class that they would likely excel in, have a real interest for, and is afraid because of what other students who previously had such class and attended after-school activities sponsored by the teacher. I mean, shouldn't there be more than one teacher there, or perhaps interested parents there? Children should not be afraid to take part in school activities. Furthermore, when was the last time any of you weighed a backpack of a middle school child? They carry their books, they have to carry their computer. They may have to have their gym clothes in another bag. They've got to have their athletic equipment. And why aren't the principals letting them use lockers? COVID excuses should be over. What if the child has to climb up a hill to go home and go a mile and doesn't have a school bus or a mama or daddy to pick them up? They really need to be able to use their lockers. Children are hurting and parents are concerned. Another issue is non-school days. Remote learning is very lacking, since frequently the students have to do their work, but teachers can choose whether they want to work or not. Who's going to answer the students' questions? Parents, grandparents, babysitters, a neighbor? Who's getting paid for teaching? Teachers must teach when students are supposed to be learning and working on assignments during the day, whether it's good or bad weather. Along with that, when teachers are supposed to be at work, why should it become bring your dog to school day and let's go out to lunch? Again, with regard to students having a school-assigned computer, why can't grade school children take their computer home? That may help clear up some of their problems. One instance I know of, I mean, it just really kind of blew me away. The child had to do an art project at home, needed 10 particular items. Oh my goodness, I speak so slowly. You see, I'm not from here. I have other things to say, but here's one thing I would like to tell each of you to do, because this is my last challenge to the board. I would like you to take a half day on Friday afternoons, if you don't already, or on your golf and Wednesday afternoons. Go unannounced to some of the schools. 30 unannounced minutes of you observing in a classroom. You will have a bird's eye view and know what's really happening, what the children are doing, how they are learning. And if you don't go, spend some of that federal grant money, put cameras in the classroom. We can see our dogs at the dog care and can't see our children. Thank you.
Next, we have Melissa Shipman.
Oh, I've already went. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Wait, can you go finish?
Okay.
I must have been on there twice. So to win again.
And Hadley, too. Hadley.
Me and Hadley both already went.
Okay. Well, we just moved up 6 minutes.
Hey, I'm finished, or is it shit line? I'll go back.
Megan Troll. Next is Megan Troll. Thank you.
Good evening. I hate public speaking. After the last meeting, it seemed that most of you are coming to the realization that this has become nothing more than a game where our children are the pawns. In regards to our health department's guidance, if you can even call it that, I find it hard to take advice from someone who fails to follow her own rules when it comes to masking. I find it hard to take advice from someone who cannot answer a straightforward question simply because it doesn't fit their agenda. On July 27th, you voted for freedom. Freedom for parents and children to make their own decisions regarding their bodies and what makes them feel safe. This was something that should have never been placed in your hands or the health department's hands to begin with. After only 2 days of being in school, there was a surge, and the children who were not wearing a mask and were considered close contacts were punished and sent home for 14 days, even if they had a negative test and 0 symptoms. But those who wore masks and obeyed could continue to go to school even after being exposed per the health department. After this came the wonderful red light, green light plan. Have you truly looked at this? We were never meant to move out of the red, but once again, strong-armed by the health department. The next time want to lecture us.
You got to be careful about using names. I've been letting it slide, and I shouldn't have. So,
okay.
Thank you. Specific names are not allowed.
All right. The next time they want to lecture us about how contagious this virus is and the importance of masking, maybe they should refrain from removing their mask, placing their mask on a high-traffic surface, and then putting it back over their mouth. If you can't see it, I'll break it down for you when it comes to these experts. It is do as I say, not as I do. Otherwise, these masks would have been off of our children months ago. I know that if you make the decision to go back optional, the quarantine rules will probably get stricter. I know this, we all know this, but that's another issue for another day. Today, we take off the masks.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey Cabe. Okay.
They're a few minutes behind over there.
Okay. Time delay.
Yeah.
So far.
They're about 30 seconds behind us.
They know who we're talking about anyway. Don't you blaspheme.
Mr. Cabe?
Here we are.
Yes, sir.
Guys, thanks for letting me speak tonight. This is a little different twist on what's going on tonight, but I agree, no mask also. But my name is Jeff Cabe. I come to you tonight with concerns about what is happening in our high schools. Tuscola has always had a great reputation, but in the past few years, we have had 11 top-notch student transfers to Pisgah and leave our area. What is happening that their parents feel that leaving Tuscola is the answer? I find interesting that these transfers and students leaving, including parents who work for the Haywood County Schools and of 3 children of a town commissioner. Don't they trust their children to get a great education or athletic opportunity at Tuscola? I am not opposed to anyone pursuing the dreams and goals, but I keep going back to what is happening. I am concerned that this is creating a very negative opinion on one of our 2 main high schools in Haywood County, and that'd be Tuscola. I bleed black and gold, and this has Tuscola what has Tuscola administration done to mitigate this? What has central office done to mitigate this? I mean, what's really going on here? If it's not stopped, you're going to kill Tuscola High School. The rules are not being, the rules from the Raleigh are not really being pushed. If it's not an athletic thing, then you shouldn't have a problem setting out 365 days. But that's not here nor there. I have to ask, there is a policy about transferring, and if so, is a policy being followed? It's not being followed. You do what you want to do. I've asked a lot of y'all, and y'all just pass the buck. It's you can look right now and tell you that the school board or the school central office is run from that side of the county. Tuscola's getting robbed. Who makes these decisions about transfers? I know who makes them, and y'all do too, but y'all pass the bucks. And is there an appeal process about this? I know 2 students that attempted to transfer to Tuscola the same week we had all this other stuff going on, and they were totally said no. Because they were great athletes, and what they were going to do was going to hinder somebody else's kid. I know that the individual's student circumstances are different, and it's not none of my business, but the transfers are supposedly for reasons other than academics, but it sure does not seem ironic that the transfers occurred the day after the season ended. It's straight bull. My wife and I grew up in Haywood County. We both went to Tuscola. I got kids right now going to Tuscola that are suffering because of this. We like to win too. We like to win. And you take our kids back, and we do win. We wouldn't dream of sending, when I was in school, we wouldn't have dreamed of sending kids to that side of the county. Nothing against that side, but if you're black and yellow, you're not black and red. Black and red ain't black and yellow. That's just the way it is, folks. So my question remains, what's going to be done? Are you going to kill Tuscola, or are you going to just come together and have one big high school? Because you're killing Tuscola High School, guys. And y'all know it. Just everybody's afraid to say it. But the central office is run by that side of the county. Thanks for letting me share it, guys. It's just, it's unbelievable what's going on right now. And my kids are suffering. Thanks, guys.
Next, we have Stephanie Bell.
You go, girlfriend. Which way? I'll move the whole table. I don't care.
It's my 1-year anniversary. I've been doing this for a year. Has my time started? Oh no, I got a lot to say. Start it over. Oh. All right, guys, it's come down to the nitty-gritty. You've sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of North Carolina and the Constitution of the United States of America. You have failed to uphold both of these constitutions. We live in America and are free to live our lives without restrictions, abuse, and unlawful mandates from elected government officials. Mandates are not enforceable laws. As an elected public servant, you have no jurisdiction or authority to create or enforce mandates. I ask you to look to General Statute 90-18, medicine and allied occupations, practicing medicine without a license. You and everyone employed by this district as teachers, administrators, have engaged in the practice of medicine without a license, which is a violation of state law. You're recommending medical devices that are licensed under emergency use authorization. Any product that is not deemed FDA approved cannot be enforced or mandated. Federal law Title 21 U.S. Code 360 BBB. I'll give you my paper, it's a lot. Emergency dispensing the school board members are not medical doctors, and you don't understand the risk of what you're doing to force these children to wear masks for an extended period of time. The oxygen to their system is greatly reduced, and the child is breathing in excessive amounts of CO2. Children who attend the schools in this district are suffering from headaches, behavioral issues, blurred vision, and even my child, his phonics, because he's had a mask on since he started school. U.S. Code 1985 under 42 statutes, conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. You, along with your school board, have voted to uphold unlawful mandates that have interfered with the civil rights and abilities of teachers and principals, thereby preventing them performing their duties. Title 21 U.S.C. as mentioned as above. Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, illegally creating or enforcing policies on minors. The Individuals with Disability Acts. Children with disabilities and IEPs have had medical problems and not capable of wearing a mask. It doesn't matter to school. You have to wear them anyway. The Color of Law, Section 242, Title 18, the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or the laws of the United States. Here's the problem, guys. We gave them power because there was an emergency. If they've realized that if they want the power, all they got to do is keep creating emergencies. None of y'all are doctors. The health department can't do anything to us. We're tired of the mask on our children. It's time to stand up. The time is now. Never should you guys have the opportunity to tell us what to do with our kids. I don't co-parent with the government. I don't co-parent with the school board. You weren't there when I made my children or when I had them. I make the decision for them. Enough is enough. Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Lynn Johnson.
I didn't even mention the shirt.
Lynn Johnson.
I didn't mention a lot of stuff at all. I didn't even say that it was about the
Lynn Johnson. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, gotcha.
Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I'm not prepared. I don't have anything prepared because I decided to speak at the last minute. I'm not a health professional, but I am a veteran retired teacher, 28 years. 15 of them were in the North Carolina public school system in Jackson County. I taught special education. Most of the children that I taught were behavior disordered, worked a lot with kids on the spectrum. All of my students had IEPs. I cannot fathom how these kids are getting lost in the shuffle in all of this. It just breaks my heart. I also am a grandmother of 3 kiddos here in Jackson County, or in Haywood County. Love the education they're getting from the schools they're at. That is not my issue. My issue is that the oldest one has chronic contact dermatitis. He's 13. It's relatively embarrassing. My middle grandson has regular daily headaches from the masks, and my youngest, who is 6, has never been in school without a mask. He doesn't know what his friends' smiles look like. He doesn't know how to read social signals. It's devastating for kids. Socially, emotionally, is one of my biggest concerns is social emotional, because these kids have got to get back out in the world, and we've got some work to do to catch them up with all the things they've missed, because all they see is people's eyes. So I, as a resident of Jackson County, but a retired North Carolina educator, I ask you please to do what's best for the kids. It's going to take a lot of work to catch them up, but we can do that if we work together and do what's right.
Thank you. Next we have Chad Haynes. Is he next door? Okay. Anyone else that's over in the other area, if you want to move this way, that's signed up, Brooke Haynes and Ted Carr. Ted's in here, I see. Just wait a minute, Ted, and we'll.
Hello. Hey.
How are you?
Chad Haynes.
Hey. Enjoyed all your speeches. I'm a fan of masks, no mask also. Just so you know. Sorry, I didn't want to make a mistake, might get hit over the head. I like yours a lot, brother. All right.
Let's talk up here, Mr. Haynes, please. Chad Haynes.
Yes, sir.
You're up. Thank you.
Hey, thank y'all for having me. I'll skip some of the pleasantries because I'm on the clock. I will say, Jimmy, congratulations. I'm proud of you. I come from a long line of talkers, like I tell y'all every time I come up here, but Jimmy can back me up on that. But I will keep it short tonight. I'm here to talk to you about specifically the transfer policy and the exceptions that are made to that transfer policy, the resulting drama that's created because of exceptions, and the division that occurs in the community. I have a couple of specific examples I'll give you. Those things will lead us to some questions, rhetorical questions I'm going to leave with you guys and hope for you to consider. First example, I coached 2 young men. I'm the coach at Waynesville Middle School, if you don't know me. I coached 2 young men in spring of 2021. Those young men approached me about needing to leave practice early. That was the COVID year. to go to Pisgah orientation. I'll be honest with you and tell you it hurt me pretty deeply. I'd coached them in youth, middle school, coached their older brother, fairly close with the family. So I was taken aback a little bit by that. I came to accept that things happen, people move, and as bad as it hurt me, that I had to make peace with it. I later learned that they had not moved and they were granted an exception for hardship. Also learned that their older brother still drives to Tuscola High School every single day. So a hardship like that makes no logical sense, creates drama, creates division in the community. My question in that case, their mother works at Pisgah. Is there a special privilege for students whose parents work in the school system that allows them an exception to the transfer policy? If so, we need to document that in the policy because that would eliminate the drama. Second example, the most recent 2 transfers from Tuscola High School to Pisgah, I believe both those individuals claim they were bullied. I'm not here to debate that. What I can tell you is that if bullying at that level occurred, I would hope that there was some investigation that happened independent of this board, independent of the county office. If that's not the policy, it very much should be, and when I say independent, it needs to be independent. I'm not here to weigh in on that one way or the other, but I'll leave you with one last thing about that specific situation. One of those young men was also on that team in 2021 COVID year. We lost one of the players to Rabun Gap as a transfer. We lost the 2 twins to Pisgah as a transfer. We lost this other young man most recently as a result of bullying as a transfer. In March of that year, all this talk of transfers was taking place on the practice field. Each of those young men were talking about where they were going. This particular young man, last in my example, he said, if my dad, who works at the school system, loses his job, I am transferring to Pisgah. So my question to you is, how can he foreknow that he's going to be bullied to a level that's going to require him to transfer to another school? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hearn. Brooke Haynes.
Thank you, gentlemen. I want to continue the discussion about the transfer issue. And I want to speak about the blatant attack on teachers and coaches by loud voices in our community that is creating decisiveness and division, specifically in the Waynesville community. Excuse me. People in the Waynesville community are inciting division by commenting negatively on both the coaches and teachers at both WMS and THS. An example, an individual commenting that all the cool kids are transferring to Pisgah. Another example, a person holding a sign at the most recent Tuscola versus Pisgah basketball game saying, there's the reason we transfer to Pisgah, or there is a reason for transfers. Another calling out the amount of teachers that left Tuscola in a short period of time in the previous years. I personally want to speak not only to the quality of education that my children have experienced over the past 7 years at Waynesville Middle and Tuscola, but also to the care and compassion that these teachers and coaches have toward all my children. And my 3 children range in spectrum both academically and athletically. I fear these teachers do not receive the support they deserve. They are not out to hurt or hold back or put down the children they serve, and they are rarely given the benefit of the doubt in these difficult situations. This same individual went on to claim that all it takes to get a transfer is perseverance and continuing pressure applied to the county office. So my question is, if this is true, can anyone who's unhappy at their current school simply act and apply enough pressure to the county office to transfer schools within the district? And if this is true, would the inverse be true? Could we apply enough pressure to not only prevent the transfers, but have a heavier backing for our teachers and coaches? People up here have talked about the invisibility of privilege. They've talked about kids in the middle of the drama, and they've talked about the morale of our children. If we don't take a stand and stop transfers for reasons that are outside of moving out of a district, then we are tearing apart the very fabric that makes the Waynesville community who it is. Like Jeff Cabe said, we bleed black and gold. If you're in Waynesville, you bleed black and gold. But we are being prevented from having the opportunity to have pride in our school because the few are impacting the many. and we do not need to be taken advantage of. It is time for us to stand up and say, you need to put a stop to these transfers, especially for reasons that are not because they just moved out of the district. Thank you for your consideration and for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Ted Carr. Ted?
Chairman Francis and board members, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Putnam. My name's Ted Carr, and I'm here to speak for myself, not for the Bethel community and not for the Republican Party. And not for the school bus drivers here. I'm not a scientist, and you know I'm not a doctor, but I can digest reports from those that are. In the past 10 days, the news outlets are just flooded with news reports dealing with shots and masks. The recent Johns Hopkins report says we should simply stay the course. Masks have not helped and shots have not helped. Imagine, of those adults infected by COVID, 80% had the shots. They were fully vaccinated. Closing the mom and pop stores and leaving the big box stores open had no effect on the spread. But the children are what we're concerned about tonight. Pearson Sharp on One American News reported a study from the UK. Thousands and thousands were vaccinated. Mostly lived, thank goodness. But I'm here to give you a ratio here. I'm not talking about a quantity, I'm talking about a ratio. Of 53 youth that were vaccinated and died, 53 were vaccinated and died, 1 had COVID. 52 had other complications, blood clots, this and that, not COVID. 1 died of COVID, 52 died of something unrelated to COVID. That's the ratio. Imagine if your youngster gets a shot, he's 52 times more likely to die of complications than from that shot than die of COVID. And the UK study prompted Sharp's team to look into local CDC data, and they found the same thing. Another look into the CDC data showed nearly 10 million youth have been infected with the COVID. 10 million, sadly, some of them died. But less than 800 of those 10 million died. And other reports have said the effect on the children that have COVID is less than the effect on adults. Dr. Bhattacharya, I'll spell that so you can look it up or can Google it, Bhattacharya. He reported, and he was following up from the Johns Hopkins report, that among children, masks are not affecting the spread of COVID. But what masks are doing is having a profound negative effect on a child's psychological well-being. And for the youngest, the masks are affecting their ability to learn, ability to pick up on social cues, and to interact with others. Gentlemen, the reports are in. They're coming in. The masks are not helping our youngsters, but masks are causing irreparable psychological harm. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank everyone for your comments tonight. At this time, board members, you've had an opportunity to look at and read the January 10th closing regular session minutes, the January 24th closing special called session minutes, February 7th special called session minutes.
I make a motion we approve the January 10th, 24th, and February 7th minutes.
We have a motion from Mr. Kirkpatrick. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Francis. I believe he got it. Okay. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have Miss Brandy Stevenson for a couple items that we need to take care of.
Chairman Francis, members of the board, staff, and guests, the first contract I bring to you tonight is for ProCare Therapy. You guys talked about it at the called board meeting on January 24th, and we just needed to bring it to the board tonight for full approval. It's for to contract with an agency to provide occupational therapy assistant services to our students.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the ProCare contract as presented.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Rogers, second by Mr. Kirkpatrick. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next.
The next contract I have is with Public Consulting Group. This is to provide an online platform for our 504 students that have 504s in our district. It'll be with the same company that does our ECAT system, which is the one for students with disabilities. And so it'll be more user-friendly for our staff that are used to that platform. And it will talk with PowerSchool for ease of student transfers and getting the records to folks who need them in a timely manner.
I make a motion we approve the PCG contract as presented.
Second. You have a motion from Mr. Kirkpatrick, a second from Mr. Henson. Any questions? Mr. Clark. That's the second time I've done this in the last 20 years. We have a motion from Mr. Clark. Anyway, any discussion, questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Sorry, Mr. Henson.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. And Mr. Clark.
Next, we have Ms. Wood.
Chairman Francis, members of the board, for your approval, you have the 2022-2023 Haywood Early College School Calendar.
I make a motion we approve the calendar as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Kirkpatrick. We have a second from Mr. Nesbitt. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have Miss Lisa Thompson.
Chairman Francis, members of the board, you have before you a non-competitive proposal with approval from DPI. This was to purchase phonics readers for our lower grades, and we're asking for your approval to proceed with the purchase.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Henson. Mr. Clark, Mr. Henson's made a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
By Mr. Clark. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have Dr. Putnam.
Aren't I a lucky guy?
Yes.
I am, aren't I? Chairman Francis, members of the board, at this time, as required by the state of North Carolina, policy 4231 requires a vote monthly on the mask policy.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to make mask optional for all staff, students, and guests for Haywood County Schools effective immediately.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Burnett. I heard a second from Mr. Rogers. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have Dr. Putnam on our policies.
Take us.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to provide a break?
30 seconds.
Well, no, you don't stay.
We're going to take a quick recess. I assume we're back up. Okay. Back up. All right. Next, we have Dr. Putnam. Sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have policy 1310 4002, parental involvement. Policy 1510, 4200, 7270, school safety. Policy 1720, 4030, 7235, Title IX non-discrimination. Policy 1725, 4035, 7236, and Policy 1726, 4036, 7237, Title IX sexual harassment grievance process. Policy 2125, 7315, confidential information. 2310, public participation at board meetings. Policy 4329, 7311, bullying and harassing behavior. Policy 7110, information provided by applicant or employee. Policy 7520, family and medical leave. And Policy 9020, facility design, all for second reading. No,
Second reading.
all
Okay.
second reading.
I make a motion that we approve the policies as presented.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kirkpatrick has made a motion, second by Mr. Rogers. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Then I believe you're going to financial or building.
We're gonna go to building and grounds. I think we were gonna put it between sandwich it between the policy and the financial stuff, so. Dr. Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, Building Grounds have two motions to bring forward. The first is a motion to approve WNC Paving to perform the grading and land preparation as per RFP 1-22 for the Tuscola High School farm. This will be funded through grants not to exceed $175,000, and of course, all that's pending proper permitting.
Okay. We have a motion from Dr. Rogers. Do I hear a second?
Second. Oh, Mr.
Second
Burnett.
by Mr. Burnett. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? Just a comment. I'm glad we're moving forward.
It's nice to break ground on
It
this
is.
project.
When you got something going, it's always a good thing.
get
Any
that
question or
permit in
discussion? More?
Waiting on that permit.
That's right.
It's in the final step now. so
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I think that's fair to say.
Any more questions before we vote? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, the second motion from Building and Grounds is to approve PFA for A&E design like for like in the renovation of the bottom floor at Central Haywood High School at a cost of $202,500 to be paid for from budgeted flood recovery money.
Okay. We have a motion from Dr. Rogers. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Rogers. I bet you beat him just a touch. We have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor?
So the building is going to be renovated at this time, or is there still some question on if that facility is going to be even used?
There is still some question. Why don't you just answer that? Doc?
All right, repeat the question. I'll make sure I understand.
Okay, so we're approving for them just to do the design work on renovating the current building, correct? This isn't to actually do the work. This is just what it's going to cost.
That is the design cost. Yes, sir.
Okay, but there's still some question whether that building can even be used at this time.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's just the cost of making the design, which has to be done in order to be continuing the process.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Just clearing that up.
So in other words, we could lose that 200, or, yeah.
No, it won't. It's FEMA money.
Well, we are guaranteed for that to be insured, so our insurance provider will cover that.
And that money the design has to be exactly replicate what is there currently, correct?
That's correct. And then following that design, there may be, again, we are still seeking relocation, but without a design fee, we can't possibly get a budgetary figure on what it'd take to replace it, like for like.
Okay.
Good explanation.
Any other questions? Good comments and good questions. Any other comments, questions? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
That's all from Building and Grounds, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the hard work of the Building and Grounds Committee. Thank you, Dr. Putnam, and all the hard work that you and your staff do for that. Next, we have our Finance Committee, Mr. Ronnie Clark.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 4 items. The first is approve the regular monthly financial reports. We went over them in Building and Finance Committee earlier, and everything looks good.
Very good.
Yeah.
You've been around me too long, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Clark and a second from Mr. Francis. Any question or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next, we need to approve the purchase of a $50,000 bond to cover our new finance officer.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Clark, second from Mr. Nesbitt. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You will be bonded now. Anything else?
Yeah, 2 more.
2 more.
Okay, we need to approve the contract with Anderson, Smith, and White, our audit contractors, for the year ending June 30th, 2022, please.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Clark. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Rogers. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? I will say that they've held that fee flat several years. We don't know how far back, but 3 or 4 years, and that's unheard of in inflationary times that we're in.
They've done a
So
great
I
job for
appreciate
us.
that. Anyway, any other questions or comments? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And finally, if you guys looked in the finance, we have we need to approve budget amendment number 4. And if you got any questions, I'll let your finance officer explain it.
Well, as you do a budget, there's always budget amendments and revisions, so we'll keep it up to date.
I make a second to approve number 4.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Clark, a second from Mr. Nesbitt. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, Dr. Putnam.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for your information, we have 14 separations for information only. Separation from employment, 14. Leave of absences, 6. For your approval, we have for employment, 15. Employee status changes, 33. Employee coaches, 9. Non-employee coaches, 13, and volunteer services, 4.
Entertain a motion to approve the personnel.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Henson's made a motion. Do I hear a second? Second by Dr. Rogers. Any questions or discussion on the motion on the floor? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Dr.
Mr.
Putnam.
Chairman.
Remember to keep Dr. Nolte in your thoughts and prayers as he continues to recover. And board members, I appreciate your perseverance tonight, and we've had a great meeting tonight. There being nothing else to come before the board, meeting adjourned.